So I was watching Joe Rogan's latest episode, and he has this advertisement for the Zero Day on Netflix. Did you guys see that? Like,
What
Oh,
are you
this is
doing
a new
watching
Netflix
Joe
show?
Rogan, bro? I'm worried.
it's a new show. And I was like, why? How come that we are not sponsored by Netflix? I mean, we are a better choice for Zero Day anything than Joe Rogan.
Is it good though? Like, I want to watch this thing.
I
In all
like it.
seriousness, I hear the casting is great and everyone in
Robert
security
De
is
Niro.
talking about it. A lot of NSA hacking everything, apparently.
There's
NSA.
like NSA
I love this
hacking
country,
people's
bro.
signal. Like,
That's right.
left and right. There's a commission that basically it can bend any law. Like they can do whatever they want. Like
That's cool. Sounds realistic. I'm about it.
Hello, everyone. This is the Three Buddy Problem, a podcast on the Security Conversations Network. I'm here with my buddies Costin and Juanito.
good morning.
Big week of news this week. I want to start
Insane.
right off the top with this cryptocurrency exchange Bybit. Apparently a
Okay.
Dubai-based.
What the fuck is going on? And I say that because like I felt so proud of myself that I like prepared. I read all the articles, all the shit. I was gonna be so ready, and then you guys just pop off with like the
Magic
live
money.
investigation, magic money bullshit.
Costin,
So
this is your turn to shine, buddy.
the
Your
hell's
magic
going
money
on, man?
people. Magic money people in the news. No, in all seriousness, this is being billed as the biggest crypto heist in history.
It's
1.4
the biggest
billion
heist, crypto or not.
in history.
Yeah,
$1.4 billion stolen from this Bybit cryptocurrency exchange and directly tied to Lazarus, which is a North Korean threat actor. So, Costin, right off the top, can you kind of level set what we know as of right now?
Well, just to set the stage. First of all, Bybit is the world's, I think, largest, third largest crypto exchange. So I think it's right before after Binance, which is probably the world's largest. And this is a company. I think they originally started in Singapore, but they moved to Dubai, which has become kind of the mecca for cryptocurrency stuff because there's no KYC. It's pretty easy for someone, for instance, to start a company in Dubai, open a bank account, then they create an account in an exchange there. They deposit the funds. They swap the funds to dollars. They move the dollars into their bank account. And next to the cryptocurrency exchange, there's a bank where they cash everything with like minimal commission fees. So like
Have you
almost
heard
nothing.
about this Bybit before today?
I
It's a
admit I
known
have
in your
not.
world?
I admit I haven't. I've heard of the ones that had all sorts of troubles with the law. Like
That's
for
when
instance,
we hear about them.
yeah, the CEO of Binance, CZ, he was in jail in the United States for a while. The founders of a number of other cryptocurrency exchanges, they're sanctioned. KuCoin, for instance, they're sanctioned, and pretty much, that's when you hear about them. But to be honest, I haven't heard of Ben Zhao or Zhu before. What can I tell you for sure is that I was impressed about how he handled this incident, which again,
He's the CEO of Bybit, right?
he's the CEO of
Ben Zhu.
of Bybit, correct?
And
Ben
he
Zhou.
confirmed the hack. What did he
It
say?
seems
And
he
what
did it.
Yeah.
Like in a way, he's the one who, let's say, clicked or approved the transaction, which turned out to be something else. Because most of these transactions and the way that hackers sometimes steal the funds is they kind of require user interaction, especially when you have to move the money from the cold wallets into the hot wallets. And in case people don't know, typically big exchanges, they keep all their money, funds in a vault, if you want, like the gold at Fort Knox, if there's any left. And every now and then they just, move the funds from the vault into the kind of the real world. But otherwise, the money are just safely stored there. And the nice thing about crypto, by the way, is that you can prove that those money actually exist, unlike the gold that may or may not be.
Wow.
Cryptocurrencies can be proven like on the blockchain. This is like our deposits. These are
You
our
can even watch
funds.
people heist it like completely. Just
You
make
can
it
watch
disappear.
like
It's
sometimes you
great.
can even watch it in like with popcorn. You can watch it in real time. So what happened
should.
here is that he thought that he was moving some of the money from the vault into the hot wallets, which is the wallets connected to the internet with the bots, with everything. And he approved the transactions with something called safe, which, by the way, it used a harder token. He said that he used a ledger, I think, to approve the transaction, which is, again, kind of impressive, because this is not, let's say, like a stupid, silly mistake. No, this was like a sophisticated thing in which their multi-sig cold wallet was compromised. And that means that every single person that had to sign that transaction, and typically it's not just one, but when it's a multi-sig wallet, several people have to sign it. So I sign, you sign, Juan signs, and if all three of us we sign it, only then the transaction goes. So the Lazarus guys, they managed to fool everyone there in the company, all N of them, if you want.
This is a technological hack?
It's, I think, it's super technological, but also there must be a lot of social engineering involved, because when he said, when he signed the transactions, he said he saw a totally different amount. He thought that he was moving like a few $1 million in funds, not billions. And obviously he didn't realize that the money were going to the hacker's address. So now there's speculation mostly about how this was achieved. Some people claim that the Lazarus guys, they managed to compromise everyone, like infect their computers with malware through different kind of investment applications, which is quite typical for them. They trick people into running Python code off GitHub. And you'd think maybe if you get some Python code and you look at the code and there's nothing malicious in there, maybe it's just talking to an API to get the latest exchange rates. But then I think they exploited a vulnerability into one of these things. This is one of the theories. And that is exactly what gave them remote code execution on the machines of maybe at least one in the beginning, and then they move laterally to all the people who are doing the multi-sig wallet thingy.
Wow. Juanito, this is typical TTPs for Lazarus Group. And just quickly before we get to Juan, Costin, how can you shed some light on the quality of the attribution here? How do we know exactly that it's Lazarus Group? It feels like this happened overnight and everyone's already pointing to North Koreans. Is there strong evidence there, or is it shaky?
I would say it's good. It's a kind of good evidence that we saw with WannaCry back in the days. If you remember, it was Ben Nemo who posted something on Twitter back then, linking an early version of WannaCry with the Lazarus Group. So maybe this is kind of similar in the sense that before running the heists, the Lazarus guys, sometimes they test those wallets to make sure that actually they work. So like one of the most stupid things in crypto is that you get a new wallet and you move all your money to the new wallet, and it turns out that the new wallet is broken somehow and you lost everything. It happens more often than you can imagine. Then there's people sending money to the zero address, like to nowhere. And yeah, it's so easy to lose money, which is why people test. And in this case, it's connected, I think, to the Lazarus Group in multiple ways. And here, when we say it's connected to cases that the FBI said in the past were connected to the Lazarus Group. So it's not just things that people say, random people say, yeah, that was Lazarus. But the FBI themselves, for instance, they link some of the hacks, such as the Ronin hack, which was before this, which was, I think, the largest cryptocurrency heist in history. It was a $600+ million. And that one is linked by the FBI to Lazarus. Now, the methods, the TTPs are also similar to Lazarus. So pretty much everything in this story actually screams Lazarus. And I think also it's interesting to say that the researcher who made the connection first, he cashed a bounty from Arkham. Arkham being a platform for cryptocurrency blockchain attribution style investigations, if you want. And he got a bounty of $30,000 for being the first who linked the Lazarus Group to this, which is now again the largest cryptocurrency and not just cryptocurrency heist in history. By the way, we should also mention Lazarus. Previously, they were trying to steal $1 billion from the Bangladesh National Bank, right? The Bangladesh bank heist, which is what made them famous. And I saw like another very cool case in history, which was then when Saddam Hussein was trying to flee Iraq, he instructed his son to go to the bank and cash $1 billion, just to draw $1 billion in cash, which is considered to be the biggest heist in history. Saddam Hussein and his son trying to
So
cash
this
1 billion.
How do you
1.4
physically move $1 billion?
Look, I was wondering.
Banknotes, I guess.
I-
Like you would need like central banknotes, I guess, because
uh,
there are bigger
yeah.
denomination bills for banks.
Good point. Yeah,
Raw
sure. To
cash,
move them
man.
between the banks, right? Or if you go purely in cash, I guess $1 million is what, like a few kilograms? No idea. I've never seen $1 million. No, it's less than a
like
few
$1
kilograms.
million is like 17 pounds in cash.
Juanito.
17 pounds. What's that?
Like
4 kilograms?
like 8, 7. I'm not good at math.
I don't know where we
It's
we
a
went
few
off the rims.
kilograms. It's a few
Yeah.
kilograms. So that would be like tons. It would be
Juanito, I
like
want to
tons.
circle back. I want to circle back to this Lazarus thing.
Why are you circling back, man? Why?
How did
Why?
we move? How did we move from North Korea doesn't have internet access to North Koreans being
$1.4
like the
billion.
most elite teams of crypto hackers capable of picking off $1.46 billion and having an entire system in place and a structure in place to launder it and to eventually kind of move it around? Are we falling for our own propaganda that there's no internet access there, or have they really invested? Like, help me understand how you view that ecosystem.
Those things are not mutually exclusive, right? Like those people may very well be eating cardboard and not have access to the internet, and they still have like an elite team of hackers, which in part, like, we know they're like affiliated with North Korea, but previous reporting usually puts them as not physically, like, the hackers, the operators themselves are not physically within North Korea. You hear a lot about like China, Thailand, maybe Russia, and like there's this sort of notion of like pay your own way, right? Like a lot of the heisting is also sort of like supporting your study abroad initiative that the North Korean government has been kind enough to bestow upon you. But I am, and we've definitely talked about this very early in the podcast. I am always kind of fascinated and humbled a little bit by the Lazarus Group writ large. And I say that because when we worked as part of like Operation Blockbuster, Jaime Velasco and I did some research. Then Costin and I did some research, and like we contributed our bit to the endeavor. The notion was not of a hyper sophisticated group. It was more pulling the threads of a bunch of separate attacks, things that, malware families that had never been correlated, etc., and showing that, like, hey guys, like, there's actually this giant iceberg that we now call Lazarus. So that's what Op Blockbuster gave us. But that was very much an accomplishment fixed in its time, which I believe was like around 2015, 2016. Since then, what you see is an evolution, a growth, a development, a diversification, an ecosystem building, an investment on the part of the North Koreans of saying, like, they started to take it seriously as it actually succeeded, and it showed itself as like a revenue generator and not just like some soft intel thing, or like somebody's ability to fuck up somebody's day in South Korea by like ransoming them or deleting all their data. Once it became like a sort of recognized as a sort of revenue generator, what you see is an investment that I failed to predict, that I definitely would not have read. Like, I assumed the North Koreans would be, they were shitty when I last checked in on them, and I assumed they would have stayed shitty. And even when we saw the beginnings of these operations becoming like nation state bank heists, essentially, nation state sponsored robberies, I still didn't realize that we would see in the North Korean hacking teams what we expected to see in the ransomware groups but didn't, which is when you get a fuck ton of resources, you can level up. And like, I don't know if that means buying exploits, developing exploits, training, having more operators, increasing your operational tempo, increasing your remit. Probably all of those and more. But I don't know that we've seen the ransomware groups reinvest their ill-gotten gains into improving their ops and like getting 0 days, like to that, get to that level. Whereas with the North Koreans, I'm not saying that it's through reinvestment, but the quote unquote Lazarus Group of today, because today I don't think the Lazarus Group exists as the Lazarus Group. You're sort of using it as a big ass umbrella term for what are now a bunch of groups. But the Lazarus Group of today, I don't think we could have like dreamed of comparing them to 2015, 2016.
Costin, you agree with him that we've largely overlooked and kind of
No,
not.
wait. We haven't largely overlooked. I largely overlooked. Like
No, and I'm
Costin was the
asking,
one
the
who opened
question
my
is,
eyes, right? Like Costin was the one who was like, "Oh, these guys are like improving faster than anybody else." And he said it on the podcast. I want to say it's like episode like 2 or 3. And that was for me a realization that, I'm not saying everybody else, like Song Soo and Vitali and a bunch of other people have like known this shit. I'm just late to
right,
know.
no. The people in the trenches understand this stuff. I'm talking about as in a general sense, we have this propaganda in our heads that there's no internet there, no one, it's a backward society with no internet and no one has access to anything. And we start to see this kind of sophisticated hacks over and over and over again. We see this kind of deliberate, detailed strategy around fake IT workers. You talked about using Python scripts on GitHub. You talk about like the long game, like playing the long game, working on infecting these employees at these crypto banks and exchanges and so on. And slowly you start to see the pieces coming together. And what I wanted to ask, one, do you believe in general we've kind of overlooked it? And like, what happens next with this? Like, help someone like me who doesn't understand this world. What happens when money gets put into a wallet? It needs to be laundered and cleaned and moved through exchanges, and some exchanges are blocking it, and there's a risk that you can get the money frozen and seized. And like help me understand, is it $1.4 billion gone forever? Is there chances that this money gets back? What happens next?
Well, first of all, I think that it's very bad to overlook what North Korea can do, because let's keep it in mind that North Korea is a nation who has nuclear weapons. They have people fighting in Ukraine on the Russian side. They say, initially they were totally unexperienced, but now they're learning and getting better and better and better. Like two of the, that there's two kinds of Taekwondo in the world. There's the World Taekwondo Federation and the International Taekwondo Federation, which are basically, first is the South Koreans and the other one is the
WTF?
North Koreans. WTF, correct. So they renamed it recently to WT, no F, because
The
people were very
GRU, GU
confused.
shit.
But like my diploma here, this is a WT, formerly F diploma. So like, yeah.
You need to show it, man. It's out of screen. You gotta bring it into.
But if you look at North Korea, they're in the Olympics. I was looking at the Olympics with Simone Biles, right? And like in the top 10, there were North Korean athletes. And for a country that they are living in communism, and people think that the situation there is very bad. I think that they are overperforming, and they are power to be reckoned with. So definitely do not overlook what they can do. For me personally, the realization came when I saw them exploiting this race condition in a Solidity compiler, which it was kind of impressive in my opinion, just to steal more cryptocurrencies.
That's the one we talked about.
Yeah,
that was the one that you used to like open my eyes, right?
Right. So that's one thing. I was also thinking that by the way, it's very easy to think that communist countries are incompetent or incapable because everything is so fake and everyone's clapping for the supreme leader. But in reality, the hardship, it creates some very tough motherfuckers, if you want. Like back in the days, even I grew up in Romania in communism, and Romania was like right there in the top in the math Olympics. We had like some of the best people in mathematics. Some of my teachers, math teachers, they immigrated and now they're teaching at MIT and other prestigious universities in the States. So the
Lex
hardship,
Friedman
I
taught
think,
Costin, I think, early on.
I think hardship builds very tough people, and they can be very very dangerous on many aspects. Now, what happens to the money? This is, I think, the when the fun part begins, because in cryptocurrency, laundering is everything. When you steal cryptocurrencies, laundering the funds is everything, because all the big exchanges, they have blacklists. So the moment they see money coming from any of these stolen or somehow associated with these stolen funds, they will immediately block it. So now the Lazarus guys have historically been super adept at laundering funds. With the Bangladesh bank heist, they were trying to launder that through casinos, if you remember, in Macau.
Macau, yeah.
Correct. Nowadays, what happens with these cryptocurrencies? What was impressive again in the past was that they're bridging it between different chains. So let's say if they steal this Ethereum, as we have here, they're converting the Ethereum into another chain like Solana or Polygon. And during this conversion, the kind of the addresses, if you want, they get lost. So um, even if you, let's say, have the input and the output, sometimes they try to exploit that. So in one case, for instance, one of these bridges that would swap one thing into another, it allowed you to specify the source address, and they were using an address associated with Vitalik Buterin, which is the founder of Ethereum, just to bypass all these kind of know your customer checks. So they're very good. Now, like I said, the fun begins because some cryptocurrencies have already started, cryptocurrency exchanges or bridges, they've started seizing the funds. So, for instance, some of the stolen coins, they were this mantle staked Ethereum. So, like the interesting thing about Ethereum, yes, Ethereum, you can stake it. Like if you have some Ethereum, you can stake it and then you get interest, which is about 3%, I think, per year. And there's all these protocols which allow you to stake Ethereum and essentially pocket free money, free magic money in your pocket, like every couple of days.
At some stage in this laundering process, does it ever become undetectable completely, or is it always do we have technology at some point that can do this tracing all the way to the end? Because help me understand how it becomes cold hard cash.
Yeah. So most of the laundering, how does the laundering work? It works. Let's say somebody digs a hole, and there's 20 of us that we want to launder, and everybody throws their pocket change into this hole, and then we wait for a while, and then we go and everybody takes back whatever they put in that hole. But maybe I take your money, you take Juan's money, Juan takes my money, and you don't know exactly
Why
what
are we leaving
came
it
from
in a
where.
hole for a certain amount of time? Like,
Well,
what's the
because
equivalent there?
we want enough people to come and throw their pocket money into the hole as well, right? And
This
we
is
want
just
like
muddying the hole.
yeah, we want the hole to be like full of money from America, from Latin America, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Russia,
So
China.
what are these holes called? These are the mixers?
These are the mixers, correct? These are the mixers. So in reality, like
Don't
even
laugh, Juanito. This is like
Guys, what the fuck?
so
Magic
really
money
so
bullshit.
so there are these mixers, these
there are.
and that's an exchange.
Yeah. And I think there's some famous cases are Tornado. Tornado was one of the mixers that they were using in the past. And actually, Tornado's founders, I think they got arrested because of this, particularly because Lazarus was trying to launder, and they successfully laundered hundreds of millions of dollars through the Tornado protocol. So they went to jail. I think one of the guys was recently, a Russian programmer, was recently released from jail, and possibly under Trump, he'll just walk away. But there's a lot of these mixers. In particular, the one which is making the news at the moment is an exchange called EXCH, which to me it's a Russian decentralized exchange. Now, the guys from Bybit, they actually reached out to EXCH and say, hey, whenever the money are coming in from these stolen funds, can you please seize them? And this guy said, no fucking way, you bastards. We're not going to stop anything. Because do you remember the last time when some of our users were trying to cash out on your exchange and you seized our funds?
Oh,
So we're not going to help you. So
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
it's a lot of drama. This is like, if you're wondering what's happening in this world, there's a lot of drama, even more than in infosec. If you And the other one is Chainflip, which is an interesting platform from the guys who develop Session. If you're familiar with the Session Messenger, is another like Tor like cryptocurrency powered secure encrypted communications platform that will soon be super illegal in the UK. And they developed this thingy called Chainflip as well. And they were already swapping some of the amounts on Chainflip, and people reached out to Chainflip and said, hey, can you please hold the money? And the Chainflip guys were saying like, well, we are very new, we don't even have a mechanism to stop it. So they just, I think they paused everything, all the pools, they paused the pools so they can actually implement some kind of filtering. So if you ask me, it's gonna be a kind of a cat and mouse game with laundering the money for the next at least 2 years, if not even more. Because like traditionally, the Lazarus guys, they launder a bit in the beginning sometimes, and then everyone is super fresh and super aware, and they can't launder anything anymore. So then they're gonna just let the coins just sit there in the hole for a while, and then after 1 year, like if someone is still looking, they're gonna start swapping them on new platforms, preferably, because this kind of new exchanges appear all the time. So they're just gonna wait for new exchanges to appear that will have no blacklist, and swap some of them there. And always they'll like try. So they'll take some money, put it into 50 wallets, and then those 50 they're gonna try it on a number of different decentralized exchanges, and some of them will be seized, some will work. I think in the end they do lose some of the funds. Like in this case, for instance, Mantle managed to seize a part of the money, like a few $1 million. So they're gonna lose. They're not gonna get $1.4 billion in cash in China in Binance. So probably they're gonna initially get maybe a few $1 million, tens of $1 million, and
Bybit isn't going to get their money back either.
no chance. No, I think there's a zero probability that Bybit are gonna get their money back. They put together a bounty of 10%, which is $140 million, to whoever helps them recover the money. So whenever, let's say, somebody gives them back a million, they'll give 10% of that. So if you, Ryan, can bring them back a million, they'll give you $100,000. So, which is typical in this business. If you
Juanito, how did we get left behind so far that this all sounds like real magic to us?
We
you
got
didn't
old.
invest in the Tanase projects when I
We
when I
got
told you.
we got old somehow. No, I think it takes a certain there's a certain amount of literacy to understand the space, but there's also like a necessary suspension of disbelief that if you're not open to it, it makes it very hard to look at this thing in its own language, if it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Like, which is also not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like I there's amazing researchers like Jackie Coven that you know can do some magic in this sort of like cryptanalysis, like cryptocurrency analysis, like chain analysis type work. Um, but at the same time, like I do think it's healthy to also keep an outsider looking in perspective that you can tap into to say things like what you were just saying now, right? Like, okay, so the mixers are the hole, and like, we're putting the thing in here, and like every once in a while, you feel like a total fucking boomer putting it that way, but it also keeps some of it straight, where I think a lot of the crypto world would prefer that it be a little more muddy, a little more forgiving, a little more like San Francisco, like, you
Cryptic,
know,
yeah, yeah.
Valley Magic, and like, believe me, bro, like I'm this like messiah for currency, and everybody wants to get rich, and we're in a period of mania when it comes to markets. So of course we're going to end up here. What I am genuinely fascinated by uh, is I'm just curious, like, what all of this money, what institutional money is going into these fucking uh, cryptocurrency, not just exchanges, but other types of coins, these bridges, these things, because like these people aren't breaking into some random bridge and being like, oh fuck, there's only 5 Bitcoin here because like no one's really using this bridge. Every time they walk into some random shitty like half-baked project nobody had ever heard of to move like this one bullshit shitcoin into some other bridge that will then allow people to play video games, that if they play for long enough they make, you know, another type of shitcoin that is then completely untradeable, but they can spend it in order to get on a different currency so that they can then reap the rewards of all their work, and then like maybe they can convert that into like a sub offshoot that of Ethereum that's been like broken in a tree. So half of the people believe in it, the other people think it's not real. But from that, you can exchange it to like real Ethereum, and then you can stake it so that the money doesn't become
That's
real,
how
but
you
you
end
get
up
more
in
magic
prison.
money. And then like, but you know, before you even get to sell it, like the price cratered because some idiot said something
Costin,
on
how high is he?
television, or like, or you know, dude, that's how this shit works. Like
It's
it's
true.
Look,
complete, but
this
like
is a lifestyle. I mean, I know people. I mean, I tell you, I got into kind of blockchain forensics and investigation late, because I had friends and colleagues back at work who were into Ethereum when Ethereum was, I don't know, $20 a piece, and I was like, how do you have time? How do you have time to you know, stay all the time, stay connected, see what's happening, read and try to understand all these new solutions and new algorithms and new ideas and bots and trading bots and so on. And it's a lifestyle. It's a job per se, if you want.
Crypto,
um,
bro, don't come easy, bro.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, even the president of Argentina got involved into this
Yes, tell me
whole
what happened there. I saw something about like some rug pull.
He actually pitched one of these meme coins called Libra or Libra, and I don't know if he had any kind of stakes in it, or he just wanted to do a favor to someone, or he just thought that it's cute or whatever. But
He wants to be Bukaleli.
he did say like, yeah, this is cool, and people started buying it, and the owners of that, they just did a rug pull, and everyone lost their money, and now he's under investigation in his own country. The president is under investigation for this fraud, because essentially it's when you do a rug pull, it's fraud. You defraud all your investors. That's what it is. And yeah, it's not just you and me or our colleagues, but the president of Argentina, I mean, the president of the United States has his own meme coins, and yeah, non-meme coins if you want. And this is it. Like, that's how it is nowadays. And either all this thing will be banned, or it will explode and be the end of civilization.
Costin, you had mentioned the Ronin Bridge hack, the CoinCheck hack of 2018, which was 530 million, Mount Gox hacks, 470 million.
Holy
This
fuck.
one, right? These
forgot
are
Mount Gox.
these are significant events, But what happens is they just kind of just get lost in the wayside. Another one gone, another one bites the dust. Is this what we're seeing here, or do you think this one big 1.46 billion number, of course it's going to be on the front page of every newspaper and it's going to be on CNN and mainstream media is going to be running with this
Because
big
there'll be
giant.
movies about it. At some point,
There
they'll
may be
make
movies about it, but is it just going to be another Mount Gox, Ronin, coin check in the dustbin, or do you think this is going to trigger some sort of like what happens next? What happens
Yeah,
next? I mean,
so
the North Koreans are literally picking off doing this wealth transfer to fund, like you mentioned, a nuclear program. That I mean, yeah, that's how the FBI is connecting these things. Like, what happens next?
just for you to understand, like there's a kind of a catch here, which is that in this world, $1 billion is nothing. So these cryptocurrency exchanges,
Inflation.
they swap like 30 billion every single day. So I don't know.
Okay, but that's where you see it, dude. Like that's where it becomes
That's
clear.
the lifestyle.
But that it's not just the lifestyle. Like, look, $1 billion. I know that, you know, we're all doing quite well here, but $1 billion isn't pocket change to anybody on this podcast or listening to this podcast
On this planet.
Wait, what?
All 50, no, not on this planet, just on this podcast. Like $1 billion is not pocket change to just about anybody. It is pocket change to very specific types of organizations, and they are the kinds of organizations that in the past have rushed to not just exploit but also create dark markets in order to be able to take advantage of arbitrage techniques like high frequency trading. When I say that I'm very curious at the fact that like you join any, like you hack into any bullshit DeFi bridge project with 4 people in it and a Discord, and you find $5 billion sitting around, I don't like that is not they might claim that that is wide adoption, but it's not really wide adoption. It's not like the people's money put together to look like a bustling economy. I mean, let's keep in mind that there are not really day-to-day economies being fueled by any of this shit. So what the fuck are the investment bankers, the hedge funds, like the high frequency traders doing right now in these places where they're not being watched with these arbitrage opportunities that are like almost like so multidimensional as to be of an impossible complexity to fully understand, right? Like it's chains of things that connect currencies that are traded in different chains that can be bridged between different types of currencies at different times, that can be withdrawn or contributed to for a bunch of like random exchanges at different countries with no clear regulatory framework, especially not across the board. The dimensions of opportunities there are for arbitrage are insane, which means there's like a mania of like ridiculous wealth generation that's happening inside of this black box of cryptocurrency bullshit. And like we're talking about heists, but like if someone was regularly withdrawing $3 billion from the local economy and never bringing it back, you would feel that in a real economy. And the fact that whomever is putting this money into these places doesn't seem to be feeling the effect of its loss is like a fascinating symptom of some bizarre sickness in a market that we're going to get out of like a who's the Michael whatever that writes the like financial
Michael
books,
Lewis,
like the Big Short. Michael, it's going to be a Michael Lewis book at any fucking minute. But like just think about someone is having a couple of billion stolen from them regularly, and they're not missing a beat. You're not hearing about like hedge funds filing bankruptcies or anything like that. So there is some serious bullshit, like mega scale bullshit happening in this space.
Costin, we are wrong though, right? Because it's not bullshit.
Look, all money are just numbers on paper. That's it. Like besides gold, all the money are just virtual. So a lot of I think of the of the wealth in this sphere is virtual. In theory, the virtual wealth is directly proportional to the demand. So let's say the more people somehow hear about these things, even this story alone by itself, it will create more wealth than the 1.5 billion that was stolen, in my opinion. Because more people will hear about it, everything will be fine. Long term, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
But that's the
There'll be
definition of a Ponzi scheme, too, right?
well, the stock market is a Ponzi scheme. Everything is a Ponzi scheme if you want. Like, I know, Mr. America. I know, I know.
No. This is not an American.
But look, the stock market
economic thing.
it's the same thing. It's, in my opinion, it's the same thing as the stock market, except the stock market is maybe more regulation and more taxes.
Look, the whole point of the market and the reason that regulation is generally welcomed or used to be welcomed in the stock market is that the whole point of it is that you, like, all these gambling addicts can come and speculate as much as they want, but the scales are fair, quote unquote, right? Like, more or less fair. Like, it's not so rigged that it's impossible for
Don't
one of
listen to
us
yourself.
mere mortals to, like, put in, one of us in theory could bet, put our last $10,000 on
some Nvidia shares.
some bullshit company, and the next day you find out that you are now like 100 millionaire, and you withdraw at the right time, and your life has changed. Like, that is possible because there
That's a
is such
Ponzi
a thing
scheme.
as, like, no.
Yes,
that
it
is
is.
not a Ponzi scheme. That is a that is a
You know
space
how
where
that
you
works? At some point, the market will crash. Everything will like burn in fire. There'll be
reset.
a reset. Yeah, and the cycle starts again.
But what you're talking about is, like, not all wealth redistribution is a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is a very specific type of wealth redistribution.
That's socialism.
It's a Ponzi scheme with healthcare. I'm dead serious. Like, there is an important difference here, because even from an economics perspective, right? The more we decouple, like, the wealth that has been generated over the past 20 years in, like, stratospheric, insane, unforeseeable numbers has come from the creation of financial instruments that are kind of bullshit, but, like, or largely bullshit, or almost entirely bullshit. But it's like CDOs and tranches of this kind of stuff, like all the stuff in The Big Short, right? Like all the things in 2008 that, like, caused a global collapse.
You're making Costin's point in all of this.
No. My point here is, at least that was tied to some physical indicators, like some real world economic indicators of, like, success or failure. Like, it was reverberating in parts of the economy that you could see and touch and feel. Right now, it's like there's a war in Mount Olympus, and, like, the trillionaires are slinging mud at each other, and, like, we can't even see what's happening because it's not immediately tied to, like, people's ability to buy apartments or stay in their homes or buy eggs or whatever the fuck it is we're into these days. But that also means that if you let these people go to critical mass, which is what they do every time, right? Like, we have, like, some mega financial cataclysm every, like, 40 years or something, 30 years. I'm curious what it'll look like to have, when they talk about the quote unquote crypto bubble bursting. I want to know what happens when you have, like, $1 trillion of institutional wealth that, by some technicality, fluke, or whatever, gets, like, shunted entirely in one direction, and the whole ship fucking capsizes sideways without having any fucking idea of what just happened.
Right, but this crypto world isn't going away. In fact, it's getting wider and wider, more accepted here. U.S. government embracing it. So, I mean, I feel
That's
like
what should be scary about it.
Yeah, we need to get our education up and have Mr. Costin continue to do some of these classes for us.
Look, I don't pretend that I know what's going on, and I'm definitely not an expert in this field. But for me, it's
And
incredibly interesting.
you don't have
It's super.
wallets or coins sitting around anywhere. Make it very clear, please, that you don't have like a.
I have, but like with some modest amounts. Like I said, we were playing. Like we have a group of people who just we try to learn more. We try to understand more, and friends of ours, they're like developing their own blockchains, if you want. And we put like, I don't know, I put like $100. I asked you if you want to put $100 just for fun to understand how it works. If you lose it, you lose it. Like it's a stake in Chicago, right? And if you don't lose it, then you learn maybe something new, how that whole staking works in the blockchain, not in Chicago, and how to know a bit more about when the whole market will collapse. Because I mean, eventually it will collapse for sure. There'll be a default, the same as when a country defaults. It will happen. Things will get reset, and you start from zero. If you ask me at the moment. One thing which worries me a lot is the US national debt, which keeps growing and growing. And I don't think that we're going to see a default pretty soon on this topic, but I think the potential for inflation is there. And I don't know. Like, I don't have like a lot of investments into cryptocurrencies, but bonds and stocks, you guys seem pretty worried to me.
Let me change this subject before you bomb out the audience. He's bombing out the
Everyone's
audience.
checking their 401ks
People are,
right now.
yeah,
and
people are
shit,
just
like-
clicking out of this podcast,
Yeah,
being
this
like,
is
I
a
don't need to listen to
fucking
this
bummer, bro.
bomber shit. Juanito, you're a DistrictCon. We're late publishing this podcast because you are a DistrictCon. One of the things, I
Yeah.
looked at the agenda, it looks like an amazing, pretty packed agenda. But something that popped out, obviously, for me and this with the people on this podcast that we love is this iOS O Day. And there was Bill Marsak from Citizen Lab and a Microsoft researcher, Christine Fosacheka. Is that how you say her name? Discussing QuaDream. Did you catch the talk? Can you
No.
give the people a live,
No,
give the people a live report
I
from
cannot
this?
give anybody anything.
What?
I can't give you guys
This
shit.
is the reason we're
That's why
late.
we
and
sent you there.
I know we delayed the podcast because of this.
What
Look,
happened?
man, I tried. I got dressed. I woke up early. I got my coffee.
Costin,
I
did
made
we
it
believe
there.
him?
I'm dead. There are pictures. There's proof.
I
saw
have the
Dave
image in my
Vitale.
mind.
He's one of our
waking
50
up,
listeners.
dressing up,
Dave
ahead,
putting
Vitale
up
saw me.
the fancy shoes.
The shoes were fancy. No, we and I get there and everyone's just standing around the lobby in the dark. So like the power for the entire city block had gone out. And like super unfortunate. And like this had happened like the night before, and they were reassuring the organizers that no, it's gonna come back by 9 a.m. the next day. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's still no power. So the power did not return until about an hour before, or like around when the conference ended, suspiciously enough, like on the second day, like at the end of the conference. Which was
Doesn't
a
this happen
shame.
at CyberWarCon every year as well?
DC is a cursed city for conferences. I don't know what it is, but yeah,
You sure it's not
CyberWarCon-
sabotage? Conspiracy Ryan is
CyberWarCon,
asking.
I think someone said they saw John Holquist with a fake mustache and a pair of pliers just running around the hotel.
So what happened?
no.
The conference started late?
Well, so what ended up happening, I mean, credit to the organizers and to the speakers and all the participants. Like eventually it definitely delayed the con, like almost, I want to say like an hour and a half or 2 hours. But eventually they started doing the talks in like a stuffy, cramped underground room with no AC and like one projector and like a battery pack, and like it was just like scrappy as all hell. Which is awesome. Like it's great that they do. It's like, I mean, I can't imagine General Nakasone giving a talk in the dark, with a flashlight, like it's like a Goosebumps story. But I'm afraid I ended up missing basically all the talks. I'm right now ripping the live stream off the internet so that I can watch it on the plane.
So it is on YouTube. There is a live stream available on YouTube. Is it open to everyone?
I mean, it's on YouTube. It was open. I'm guessing there's people at home that watched more of the talks than I did being there. At the same time, it's like it's raw feed, and it doesn't look like it's all of it. So,
Okay.
it's whatever we can scrap from it. But there were some amazing looking talks. So like I'm like the one that I was excited about was actually Halvar's closing keynote, like lock note for the first day.
Memory
And
safety stuff. I saw him post his
yeah.
slides. Yeah.
Yeah, and I look. What I'll say about this, just to, I don't want to make DistrictCon sound like a failure at all. It actually was like a really nice conference, like a really good vibe. No one was upset.
Big? How
Everybody
big?
was
200, 300 people?
there must have been a couple hundred folks. And but everyone was like having good conversations, super good natured, people trying to help other folks that are like in the federal government and just lost their job, or they're about like they feel like they're about to lose their jobs. So a lot of like camaraderie. And then I did get to participate on day two in they had an AI policy roundtable, and it was off the record,
Sounds
Chatham
super
House stuff.
exciting.
Dude, honestly, I normally would have expected it to be extremely shitty, because when you have something like that where you're like, I don't know who these 20, 30 people in the room are going to be, the
Go ahead.
conversation
Pitch me
tends
why
to,
this was exciting.
well, it was actually nice because somebody handpicked the people. So what you had were like congressional staffers and like people from big companies that actually like had a like I learned a lot about some like open source initiatives and stuff in the EU that I didn't know about. And like we were genuinely, it was a good conversation. You had Halvar, you had Will Pierce from Dreadnought, and like Martin Wendigenson, like just folks that I'm already like very familiar with, but like we weren't even the most active participants in the tables. Okay, it was actually really insightful, and it kind of threw me into writing a paper about this whole AI thing, and I'm in the process of editing it. Like I left that for the first time in a long time. I left that AI policy roundtable and I crossed the street to a coffee shop and I sat down with my laptop for an hour and a half and tried to bang something out, just so that I wouldn't lose the thread of the things that I've been thinking about during that. So I found it a very rewarding conference despite the power outage.
So we have a crypto correspondent and we'll have an AI correspondent. And Costin,
What's your thing, bro? What's
my
your
question
niche?
was like, how was the karaoke? Like that's why you went to DC, right?
I would never. I wouldn't be caught dead.
Like
I have this
Why?
in
to tell you a
Spanish. We
secret,
say
Juan is like the master of karaoke. He's fantastic,
fuck you
especially in
guys.
Spanish.
Fuck you guys. I in Spanish we say pena ajena. You can have
Pena?
pena ajena. You can have vicarious embarrassment. And
Mm.
my which I think is what the kids call cringe these days.
Mm.
My sense of vicarious embarrassment is extremely delicate. Like I can't watch people sing. I can't watch like singing shows. You're not gonna catch me dead at this like karaoke.
You had one job at DistrictCon, my friend. You had one job.
Ice cream?
Mr. Costin, while Mr. Juan was missing talks at DistrictCon, we heard from Apple. We heard from Apple in a direct follow-up to something we discussed in detail. It was the top story in episode 33 of our show, which was this Joe Men scoop. The leak out of Apple that the UK government was demanding access to iCloud
Backdoor.
encrypted backups in kind of a virtual backdoor. Apple announced just this week, I think it was on Friday, that they can no longer offer this advanced data protection in the United Kingdom to new users, and current UK users will eventually need to disable this security feature. Something we predicted, that this was the only obvious move for them. What does this mean? Does this help level set that it's only affects people in the UK? Is there a risk that this filters out and affects the rest of us?
Well, first of all, I saw there's a lot of people, hating Apple for this, and I saying, "Oh, Apple is evil," and
They
look
had
what
no
they're
choice,
doing.
right?
Like to me, this is like amazing. In my opinion, Apple did an amazing thing here because, well, basically they refused to build a backdoor in a silent manner that would give government access to your encrypted data. That would have been so much worse. And actually, there's a lot of people who are asking the question, to the void, and there's no answer. Like, what about Google? Like, Google's, is it encrypted? Like, if it's encrypted, does the UK government have a backdoor to that? And there's no answer. So, to me, I think this is a huge success story in the sense that Apple refused to build the backdoor in the encryption. The encryption is solid. They prefer to disable it instead of just creating a backdoor. And the other thing, which I think is a huge success story, is that this means that encryption works. Like, if you use encryption, it really works. You are protected. People who want to get access to your data, they can't, because the encryption is solid. So for Apple, this is like a double success story, in my opinion. And it means that your data, which, if it is encrypted with this advanced data protection technology, then it means that it is much safer than other solutions. And I think I saw, I apologize if I'm mistaken, if it was JD Vance saying that this could have been the case in the United States as well. So I wouldn't be like so quick to rejoice from the geographical point of view. I'm afraid that now that this has been a kind of a success story in the UK, this may happen in other countries as well. What is, I think, also important here is that Apple said that we are going to stop offering this to new users. And in time, existing users who have it enabled will also have to disable it, or we will disable it for them. So my advice here would be, if you don't have this enabled and you live in a free country, then enable it. That's probably the best advice. Try to enable this as soon as possible while it still lasts, because you never know what happens.
Honestly, I loved the part where Apple has to come up with some way to help people turn off um,
A security
the
privacy. Yeah.
well, but no, I mean, like, they couldn't just turn it off, which I think
Mm,
is really telling, right? Like, they're saying, like, hey, we're going to come up with some guidance for those of you that already had it on, because we can't remotely undo this.
mhm.
And I think that too is an
Fantastic.
amazing, it speaks, assuming it's not all incredibly overblown theater,
You can ship an
which
update to turn that off. I mean, they've shipped updates to turn things on and off. This Apple
I don't
Intelligence
know.
is now on. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think that we can properly speak to that, right? Like, the kind of
Agree.
stuff like that you see in Ivan Kristik's Black Hat talk from a few years back, like that kind of architecture, they are, at least, again, if they're doing what they say they're doing, which I honestly have no reason to believe that they aren't, they're putting a lot of engineering and, like, extremely sophisticated uh, mental power into taking those abilities away from themselves. And that's the only way you will never be compelled, is if you literally do not have the power to do so. So the fact that Apple spends so much money and time and energy trying to do that is something that, like, there's a reason they are the fucking, like, luxury brand for security. That is what you want. If you are wealthy, living in the first world, you should have Apple devices for the sake of that security. That at least iOS devices. So, like, you do have to give them that credit, because they are putting the fucking work into it, and Google, once again, shines by its absence.
Then that's where I wanted to flag right here. Conspiracy Costin flagged it right to the top there, which is a piece in Joe Men's story. I'll read a paragraph from Joe Men's original story on the UK officials demanding this backdoor. It says Google would be a bigger target for UK officials because it has made the backups for Android encrypted by default since 2018. Google spokesman Ed Fernandez declined to say whether any government had sought the backdoor, but implied none had been implemented. And quote, Google can't access Android end-to-end encrypted backup data even with a legal order. We haven't heard from Google still through all of this. What do we think has happened there? The UK government just miraculously doesn't know that Google do this?
Yeah, but
Or there's
the
something
language,
happening there that we haven't learned?
the language there says even Google cannot access, but they are not saying that whatever government cannot access. So maybe this can be built in a manner that whatever government can, but Google cannot. So always when it comes to this kind of press releases, I think the language is super, super important.
Oh yeah.
And that's how you cut through the
have to
bullshit
parse
and you
it, yeah.
understand what's happening when you're very careful about what you're saying. And like, so let's say when you ask, did the UK government ask you to build a similar backdoor, and you answer that my company cannot access the data. I mean, that's, I
Yes.
think, an
Because it's
interesting
not an
observation.
answer, right?
Yeah.
It's not
No,
an answer
It's
because
the pivot. Yeah.
it's a pivot to this is our comfortable and extremely legally vetted language for answering this. And like we've all done media training before, right?
of
Everyone,
course.
everyone here has done media training at some
it,
point. It's
it's
all, you know, you stay on message, you deliver it your way, you want to make sure the soundbite, the clip is exactly what you were meant to be saying, and you don't let them steer you. They ask you like, so what's the weather like in Berlin? And you go, our product is the fastest, bestest way to do whatever. And they go, so what are you wearing today? You go, our product is the bestest, fastest thing, whatever.
or
And
or
like,
or like what was that with the drones in New Jersey? And then the answer comes, um, that was all authorized research the drones were doing. And like everyone's, if it's authorized, it's fine.
okay.
And everyone else is like, wait, what kind of research?
Yeah,
What kind of
what the fuck
research
are you
were they
guys doing?
doing? What, there were like thousands of
Is
them
that the
doing
end of
what
this? Is
research?
that what that story came down to? I'm telling
Nobody
you, man,
knows.
I have figured out how to like somehow stay
Just let that
away
shit
from
pass
yeah,
him.
just let all this shit just pass, right? And like I'm ducking, and every once in a while, like I catch
You catch
myself
a stray.
slipping. I catch a stray, and I'm like, wait, what did they do? And I'm like, no, stop it. Just fucking pretend it's not happening. It's not
Let me
happening.
get this train back on the
Did you
tracks.
have drones flying above your houses doing research?
I
Like,
mean, I'm not at a wedding, so I'm not that concerned. It's fine.
Let me
uh,
get this train back on the track. Two things. Is this something that people in the UK should worry about only? Does this affect the rest of us? Are you expecting cost in another European nation and an Asian nation somewhere else to say, hey, turn it off for us too?
look, I was thinking, if I'm in the UK and I still want to profit from this thing, can I just change my region to Ireland and pretend I'm Irish and get the encryption, or is it like not very politically
I
correct
don't
and
know
like a
what you said.
totally no
Well,
to
it's
do
not
in
that
the
easy
UK?
to do, right? Like like, Apple is notoriously rigid with stuff like that because they tie your payment to verification, your credit card, your whatever, and like you know,
Do we
I'm not
expect
saying it's not doable, but like
do we expect circumvention to pop up at some point where people are able to keep it
Can
but
set your
not?
country to China.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
You
this
get a
is not the
different
kind
backdoor
of
that way.
You get different.
So this is not the kind of product that you just like replace. Like this is the kind of thing that is a beautiful add-on to an ecosystem, and only the ecosystem maintainer is in a position to provide that. Which is again why I give Apple a lot of credit for the way that they do things, because only they can do them for their people. But no, I don't see this as something that you end up circumventing. Like you can go try to like come up with a bunch of like crafty, cool ways to protect yourself, but you cannot do the protecting that Apple is the only positioned party to do.
Apple has made a point of promoting private cloud compute, this PCC thing for their Apple Intelligence for the handoff of device computing. Do we expect that to also be in the crosshairs at some point in the future, if that's where some of the magic computing happens for our AI searches and our AI interests? And Apple is building building a system where that's kind of off limits, and the security there is like a vault. I mean, should we connect those things at all? No.
No, well, again, it depends entirely on the implementation. And I'm sounding like a fucking broken record today, but like, that's why you want to give Apple credit, because I don't know what the implementation of TCC is going to be. And it's possible that they don't know what the implementation of TCC is going to be. But I,
PCC.
yeah, sorry, PCC, private cloud compute.
Yeah.
They may not know what the implementation of PCC is going to be just yet, but I would imagine it's in their greatest possible interest to genuinely like make this thing semi-anonymized or like ephemeral in some way, and they can't reach the data because like the query itself is in an enclave, and then like that kind of magical like ultra high-end security engineering, like the legit crypto analysts who didn't go work at the fort. That that's the kind of thing we should be excited for, and I would expect Apple to do it. At the same time, there is a Faustian bargain that could be made there, which is Apple is winning on some capacity for like this whole hardware that enables running language models locally, and they want to lean into that more. But if Siri keeps sucking this much, if Apple Intelligence keeps being this shitty,
Nobody will care.
well, I'm wondering if there's going to be like a desperation point where they kind of embrace that they do need to actually pay more attention to what the queries are and how they're being used and what the responses are from OpenAI. And if there's a way for them to distill without distilling what OpenAI is doing so that they can improve their own like small models and stuff like that. Like there's definitely some incentives here that could get dicey if Apple starts to feel like they're somehow like missing the boat on the AI revolution because their shit sucks. Their software is going to shit. I don't know what is happening to macOS and iOS, but the amount of like little bugs,
Yeah.
failures and like notification stuff,
Photos
AirPods
crashing, cameras
desyncing,
crashing, everything.
dude,
Yeah.
things are getting like re-indexed by Spotlight at random and certain like after certain OS updates and then getting stuck. CPUs getting pegged over some stupid daemon. I genuinely believe they broke something in the Bluetooth stack about like 3 versions ago that's causing issues with all kinds of devices, including their own. Like I don't know if you notice how many times your AirPods like will crash and like reconnect. Something is wrong, and these motherfuckers don't even have a ticketing system. So I don't know what like
Costin,
I'll go on Twitter like.
this is the same guy who just spent the last segment telling everyone to buy iPhones to protect themselves.
Dude, Apple goes through these periods where they're like software. It's like you can feel like it's almost like an afterthought. Like somebody
buy more.
rushed the software at the last minute.
Buy the new version; it'll fix all of the old problems.
Yeah.
Look, I'm also a big Apple fan, you know me, and the only thing which is kind of not okay in my book, you know, like in my book I have like different names, like Juan okay, Ryan okay, Baldy super okay, Apple
Only get super.
not okay.
Not okay.
Not, you know why? Because they I applied for a security researcher's device and they rejected me. They said like I'm not good enough for the security device.
You're
don't
Like I
know,
don't have
bro.
enough 0 days. I don't have like enough credentials to own one of those.
Weren't you
And
MSRC top 100 at some
I
point?
was, I was, but I was not probably Apple's CRC
the
top
end.
100.
me-
And I was thinking, like, you know, that's a very kind of short-sighted approach, thinking that you give these devices to people who develop 0 days. I think they should give them to people who have the potential to uncover other kind of things, security vulnerabilities, use them to fine-tune models for malware detection or make the operating system more resilient.
Make your pitch. Make your pitch.
So-
Ivan is listening.
Ivan's didn't, yeah, like in my book, Apple, not okay.
Okay.
Not okay.
Ivan, hook my guy up. Like the defenders can find these things too. It's I'm being serious, and I want to pivot very quickly to, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. Is iVerify, which is its iOS app. They spun out a startup to sell an iOS app that enables the public to scan devices looking for advanced threats. We got a press release out of them saying that they in May they launched the app and they found some Pegasus infections, and then they had some media coverage, and 18,000 new users scanned devices and uncovered 11 new Pegasus cases in December 2024, just a couple of months ago. And their argument is that the infection rate is approximately 1.5 for every 1,000 devices. Like, do any of us use iVerify? What is this iVerify? And do we trust this data at all, Costin?
Well, look, I mean, iVerify, they've been around for a while. I think originally Dan Guido was one of the founders. Then he kind of separated it from Trail of Bits, because maybe some people were questioning, given the kind of offensive work that he's doing, is it good for this application to be associated with someone doing that kind of work or not? Nevertheless, now it's an independent company, So I know actually a lot of people are running iVerify. I have iVerify on some of my iPhones as well. And I saw people who actually found things on their phones with iVerify. There was one guy on X that I saw recently, a Romanian guy who posted a screenshot of iVerify flagging something like public indicators of compromise have been found on the device. So for sure it finds stuff. I don't know if it finds the really advanced things because of the architecture of the iOS or the inability of one sandboxed application to scan others. But I think what it does is looking for signs kind of in TMP, private var TMP folders, or if the device is jailbroken, you can test for that. So looking for this kind of infection signs, which in my opinion, there should be more applications doing that. It's not that difficult actually to do such an app. And I think in the past there were a few others similar apps, and one of them from Stefan Essler, if I'm not mistaken, was pulled out of the App Store. They removed him from there for some reason. And now iVerify, I think it's a top app of this kind that allows you at least to do some checks of your device. And they also have another thing which is interesting, the more advanced checks when you need to trigger a sysdiag on the device, and then you upload the sysdiag to them. So in the sysdiag, there will be a lot more forensics evidence. And me personally, I do a sysdiag every couple of weeks. I save it in a backup. So whenever I read about some new QuaDream style malware, I try to look at all my previous sysdiags and backups to see if it was infected, which is something that I recommend to everyone. So yeah, I would say they're a very serious company. I know
Yeah,
they
but this
got
is all
into.
marketing cost, and there's no
It's
technical
true.
details. It's like we
True,
uncovered
true.
11 new Pegasus cases, and everyone should just
Yeah,
believe
where,
this. Like
in
where,
which
what,
countries?
where are the IOCs? Why are we paying
Yeah,
attention
yeah,
to this?
yeah,
One and
and
two. Do they have the capability to flag something that this was definitely Pegasus? Yeah, unless
true.
you can show your work, we are
Hmm.
going by some marketing lines in a press
I
release.
fully agree. And also, what attracted my attention here is they say that the new detections involved business executives. So this in my mind, at least, it means that they know
Who their
who those
users are.
guys are. Yeah, they know who they are. So there's maybe a privacy implication here as well, if you want. Maybe they got in touch with them and they found out they were business executives. It's strange. It's unusual. And I know I wanted to say they got into some kind of a fight with I think the Graphene OS guys, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh, the
over
I
this
verify
hype.
guys. There's beef.
There is a beef, yeah. There's drama. Always there is a drama. It doesn't matter what it is, like chess, cryptocurrency, secure. There's always a bit of drama.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
tempted to just delete this press release because
mm,
I thought you can come out and say, yeah, we saw 11 new Pegasus infections. It's a line in a press release. You get a couple of
mm.
news headlines. More people download it. More people scan and they see this thing that they could somehow maybe connect in a lab to Pegasus, but they're not showing their work. Like, how do we know that this
I
is true?
I would be curious if they uncovered anything else besides Pegasus. Like, I mean, Pegasus is like so 2023, if you want. What about the new things that have been in the news, like graphite? What about that thingy? Do they have the capability to catch it? I think that unfortunately, a sandboxed application can only do that much, and probably they're missing a lot of infections. So they say the infection rate is 1.5 per 1,000. Maybe if you add the other platforms out there, it's not just Pegasus, obviously, but there's many others. I think the infection rate could very easily reach somewhere in the range of 1%. And to me, if Apple was listening, like you were suggested, I think that they should pay more attention to that. Like I said before, how about having a remote syslog? Very simple feature that has almost no impact on the device, the ability to redirect the syslog to a remote device. And all these kind of things, they can be leveraged for telemetry and for detection, and it would help people to know if they were victims, if they were targeted, and so on.
Juanito, why can't Apple do that? What's the big holdup? Is there some IP disclosure issue? Is there just there's no malware on my platform? They're like, stop, you guys go away, look the other way. What is going on over there?
I think it's more of the latter. Like, I think that there's definitely a sense in which they would rather not know a whole lot of things
You have a
because
threat
there's,
intel team that is
well,
capable and has this direct knowledge of what's going on, though.
I
I
don't
mean, we've
know.
shared
I don't
information with
know.
these folks
I don't,
before.
and they've misused it every single time.
They know it, though.
Like,
They're aware, though. They're not
yeah,
dense.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's part of the problem. That's why I'm saying that like it kind of seems like it's more that they would rather not know. And it to like it does seem to me that they would rather not know the true scale of issues, the true um they don't seem to want to know the specifics about like the stories of the individual customers and why it's relevant to them that they're getting popped. And they also don't seem to want to know the overview of why, like the true scale of the issues in hand, right? Like this iVerify thing, like obviously it's not going to be a good sampling of all iOS devices. That's impossible for iVerify. It is not impossible for Apple at all, not even a little bit. So if I verify, which is not getting a random sampling of iOS at all, it's people who are willing to try this. So clearly they seem to think something's wrong or somebody's trying to check their device or something. And you're still getting this like 1 in 1,000, 1.5, like 1.5 iPhones and 1,000 iPhones infected. That really, the reason that perspective is important is that's what keeps people in Cupertino with this ability to wave away that this is not that big a deal. It's not that much of a problem. We're doing our best to like manage it, but this is still like a rounding error, a remainder of the problem that's like very, very small and not a big deal. And don't worry about it. Like, and we're just gonna
extremely
keep,
targeted to specific
yeah,
individuals,
and
right?
they don't fucking matter at all. Don't worry about it, bro. Like there's something, I do think that's a factor. And frankly, I was surprised that this iVerify thing could do anything at all because Apple has gone through extreme lengths to neuter the ability of any user land software and applications from doing any real forensics or any kind of evaluations or even any kind of like genuine like EDR on these devices as far as we can tell. And I mean, maybe the iVerify guys have something better because they do have like an MDM and EDR thing that we haven't tested. But it's important to note that the mechanism in this app is, hey, we're gonna create a crash dump of a sysdiagnose like routine, and then you're gonna follow along and click these four buttons, and that's gonna upload this crash dump, and we're gonna analyze it on the cloud, and then let you know if you need to do more stuff. So like it's not like this iOS app like it's doing something special. It's just walking you through the only mechanism available to them. And I mean that. Like I don't think iVerify is lacking in the developers that could do this. Apple has made it impossible to do this. So why the fuck aren't they A, doing it themselves, and B, providing a genuine sense of transparency as to the scale of macOS and iOS infections and their failures, shortcomings, and implicit paternalistic decisions they've made on our behalf, where they basically say that they're the ones that get to decide how safe we need to be and how much we need to know.
All right. Can we pivot quickly off of Apple? I want to touch a couple of quick stories before we go. One is this: we got a new report out of InverSec OS. Lena Lau, known online as on Twitter as InverSec OS, has a new report out on how the NSA, through the Equation Group, allegedly hacked into China's Polytechnical University. We've spoken in the past about the absence of good data out of China in terms of their visibility. Costin has made the point that this stuff is already happening. It's just probably not being shared publicly. It might be being shared privately there. Have you guys had a look at this report? What is the quality of the reporting here, Costin? What can you tell us about?
I was still thinking that you said inverse sec OS. I was thinking, could it be inverse cos?
cos.
Like cosine, like the
I don't.
function, the
Oh
cosine,
yeah, that would
inverse
make
cosine.
sense.
I don't know. So which is kind of a mathematical angle to the equation
INVERSECOS.
group,
Yeah.
which is the irony of
There you go.
that. But I did look at the report. There's a hash, by the way, like well, 3 hashes for the same thing here. A very old second date implant sample shared by the shadow broker. So like nothing new, unfortunately. I was reading through the report, and like there were some points in there for which I was thinking like, where did this come from? Like, there's some new
Yeah.
information in there which I personally I can't immediately source it. Like, which
Give me
one
an
of these
example.
many Chinese reports? So, for instance, they say that like the NSA uses some front companies, like, and it gives the name of those companies, and then it gives the name of somebody working in one of those companies. And I was thinking, like, where did that come from? I don't think I remember seeing it. Maybe I'm just wrong here. Maybe somebody who listens to us can find the original report where the names of those companies are mentioned. So I don't know if you.
I remember the company names were from the same one where they figure out Rob Joyce worked at the NSA. Like
So
that, I
like the
think that was the
Jackson
one.
Smith consultants and the Mueller diversity diverse, is it DEI? No, diversified system. Sorry. And
He's just
Amanda
messing with us.
This
Ramirez.
man is just fucking like trying to light fires
Who is
left and
who is
right.
Amanda Ramirez? Like, who is that?
I
¿Cuál es la mejor
I
tecnología?
remember seeing some of that stuff.
Hmm.
Like it
Interesting.
was definitely out. You remember there was a report, it was like a couple of years ago, I want to say. The one, I'm pretty sure it's the same one where, like I said, they figured out that Rob Joyce worked there, but
Mhm.
maybe I'm wrong. But I definitely remember looking into like the Jackson Smith Consultants and Mueller Diversified Systems. And like we talked about some of it around some of the anonymizer infrastructure that
Mm.
Equation Group used back in the day, and like servers in Colombia and like all this stuff.
What
Like
did we
some of
learn
it,
from this report, though? This new report here.
Well,
Did we
like
learn anything
immediately
new?
what I learned, and like this is not immediately obvious, is that it's a mix of things that have happened over many years. So if
From
you want,
many
this is
different
not,
sources.
yeah, from many different sources, and not necessarily new, not something that happened yesterday. So I mean, one of the top incidents they talk about here is something which allegedly happened 2 years ago, I think, and well, 3 years, 2022. And if you want, like, it's not necessarily like a report about some new discovery, but more like going through all these different reports that got published during the last years, extracting some of the bits, putting them all together, and kind of extrapolating the methodology, the tool sets, the names of these things from different reports and their activity times, putting it into one single source. And
This university
this
was a known victim of, or that's also new?
so well, like the Chinese, every now and then they put out like these small things, small alerts with no details, except that we caught the Americans in our networks, and they are evil, and they were stealing stuff. So it's not just us stealing stuff, but we are not actually stealing stuff. But it's not just us; it's the Americans as well, for the record. So they do this from time to time, and when they do it, like, there's no proof. Typically they don't publish any proof, any IOCs, any TTPs in detail. But then, like, some report comes from one of the companies, like for instance Pangu, when they published about this BVP 47 tool set, or Qi
is that the best
Anshin.
report? I think that
I
may
think
be.
it may be,
Out
yeah,
of all of
right?
them, I think the VVP 47 is the
Correct.
best one.
From Pangu Labs, which, by the way, is intrinsically connected to some of other stories that
Yeah.
maybe we have time to talk about.
Maybe.
But like, if again, to summarize what's new in here and what was new for me, is that someone, and props for that, went through all these Chinese bits and pieces that got published during the last years, extracted the most interesting details, sometimes translating the Chinese with maybe more than just tools. Perhaps she can actually understand Chinese Mandarin natively, and that allowed the extraction of more information than usual.
You recommend that
That's
folks
my
read this report?
I would say it's interesting to read. Yeah, for some of the code names, I mean, some are like super well known. I was looking actually a bit just to see what's been published. So for this particular implant that they mentioned, I realized that nobody has actually done a thorough analysis of what was in the first shadow brokers dump. So the first one was the strangest because it was mostly router tools and router malware. So very few people actually had the knowledge to look at those and understand how they work, what they are, ROM images, flash tools, and so on. And I think, yeah, I would recommend taking a look for sure. I hope that she or they do even a follow up on this, because I suspect that there'll be an increase in the amount of public threat intelligence from these Chinese companies. Like I was saying last year, it's good to keep an eye just to understand the capabilities of Chinese threat intel companies. A lot is known about the West, but very little is known about their capabilities.
Juanito, closing thoughts on this paper?
I'm surprised at how many people have like kind of brought it up to me and like were commenting on
Come
it
on,
because,
NSA equation group tucking into China. We're hearing some words from
well,
Chinese side. Of course, it'll make you raise your eyebrows.
it also made me realize how little some folks have engaged with the existing equation group literature, because to me this felt like, and I'm not putting the researcher down at all. This is like it's a I like the write up. I enjoyed it. I
No
read it twice.
disrespect. Here it
No
comes.
disrespect whatsoever. No, seriously, no
Okay.
disrespect whatsoever. But it does it definitely feels like kind of like a big, like a book report sort of summarizing like this is what's being claimed in these different places. And as such it works well because we had all seen these pieces, like these reports, when they came out or at some
In
point.
various pockets somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
but you don't really kind of like put it together and really sort of suss out like what's going on. At the same time, I think that a lot of people sat out really engaging with the equation group findings when they happened, and the same thing happened with the shadow broker stuff. And if we are cured of this fucking fever of like
That's what you
overclassification and
mean by
like and
sat out. They
acting,
couldn't look at it because
well,
of
there,
clearance issues and
I
stuff.
say sat out for a good fucking reason. The clearance stuff was like over convenient, like bullshit. And I don't think that people should give themselves that much of an excuse or a pass for ignorance, because that's what it really turned into, and that's what we're
But
talking
that's
about now.
laziness,
Like
though.
I mean I agree, but it was like an excuse for ignorance. And if it's fine. It's been like 10 years.
Yeah. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot still to
It's
revisit
been
there, right?
10 years.
10 years,
Do
correct.
yourself a favor. Go throw all that stuff in Notebook LM, have like a nice weekend, and like realize how much stuff is out there, how much you haven't understood about your own intelligence machinery, and how much your adversaries have understood about your intelligence machinery while you were fucking burying your head in the sand just to like, for cutesy poly screening bullshit. But I say that again because this is making me realize that, to the point where we've been discussing internally, like, well, what should we do with the podcast, right? Like, do we really just want to keep doing the news? There's things that people appreciate. And I immediately was like, you know what, guys, like, we need to do some like deep dive on all the equation research that we
Yeah.
worked on before, sort of
Like
like
the trails
the
that ended up that
yeah,
that
how did
didn't.
we get here? What happened? You remember that story? Like all this private research that never really got shared beyond, like, we worked a lot. Like I jumped later on. I wasn't there for the discovery of things proper beyond like seeing that this was coming and like getting to live tweet it. But like um but then got to work on like subsequent components that I now realize have never been discussed publicly. We worked on the triage of like the shadow broker stuff in the very beginning, right? Actually, and wrote that blog about like, hey, like this, here's the inverse like crypto constant that keeps connecting things from shadow brokers back to equation group, and like had arguments with academics at the time who said that that couldn't be accurate because they've never had to hunt anything for themselves. And then all of that was so present in my world because like that led to WannaCry, that led to NotPetya, that like it was an insane period of time, and I'm now looking back at this and being like, fuck, I think a lot of people really like, to us it was this action movie that was all consuming, and then I look even in circles out here and I'm like, I think these people have never heard these fucking stories.
Yeah.
So I do think like if there's a big takeaway from this is I think this inverse cause blog, I hope basically makes it palatable and desirable for us to
Just go revisit some of the loose
just
ends.
revisit that, at least as the first thing that we revisit.
You guys mentioned Pangu team in the earliest segment. I want to pivot quickly to a new report out of our friend Eugenio Benincasa. He spoke at LabsCon this year. A new report
He
out
was here for DistrictCon, man.
he was out there?
On the China like jump the wall event and came to dinner with us last night. He's a good dude.
He's got a paper out saying the Pangu team, a prominent Chinese white hat hack group known for developing iOS jailbreaking tools, has been linked to iSoon, the company involved in espionage attacks and activities for Chinese government leaks. So we've known about these iSoon leaks. I think we discussed it on a previous episode. He is connecting the leadership of Pangu team to the iSoon folks. What is the implication here, Costin?
Well, what attracted my attention, by the way, back in the days when Pangu released that report that we were talking about, the BVP 47 report, which, by the way, it was something atypical for them, because if you look, I think that's maybe the only or maybe one of the very few reports they ever released. So there must have been some reason why they released that particular one, and I would probably expect them to have more reports on that side. Now, what I was thinking here is that, yeah, of course, Pangu, they've been super famous for many, many years for these jailbreaks, and obviously very skilled people in exploit development. And it makes sense for someone like that to get together at some point to find a way to monetize their skills and their expertise with iOS jailbreaks and exploitation. So to me, it makes sense. We know that the Chinese have a huge ecosystem of companies and trust relationships and cooperation based on personal relationships, which is very important there in the culture. You know, we're gonna work with friends, and the friends are gonna work with their friends, and in the end, like we are all in a kind of a trust circle. So there's a lot of cooperation like that happening, and it makes, if you want, it makes sense for these skilled people to be engaged in a bit more than just jailbreaking. Now, if you ask me, I think that the same situation probably true for Western companies. There's a lot of money to be made in this field of exploit development. Even nowadays, I think people still need iOS exploits, Android exploits, and mobile phone exploits in general. And if you ask me specifically about the implications here, I think it kind of confirms, it serves as a confirmation about these cooperations that are going on. And yeah, you would expect these renowned hackers who won hacking competitions like PwnFirst, the Tianfu Cup, to be somehow connected to this world.
Is the connection that Eugene is making solid enough, Juanito?
Oh yeah, I trust Eugenio. Like we've discussed some of the reporting that he and Dakota Carey have put together, some of the talks they've done before. Like they're doing excellent work. So I have no reason to doubt the connection. More so, considering that it seems to be further gains from analyzing this
The
ISON
leaks, yeah.
leak, right? So like this is going to come out. What I think it's kind of interesting to consider how differently we take um, the these glimpses, how differently we take them from like the way our European counterparts might see it versus the way that I hear it discussed in the US. And like I think for the Europeans and the folks that are sort of used to watching this, doing intelligence a little bit more sanely. Uh, this is kind of like a discussion of the particulars, right? Like it's like, hey, this particular company with these individuals and that particular company with those individuals, we can now document have been working together in this and that way. And there may be interesting ramifications of that if you
And
go
they were
back
having these very
to this and
specific
that.
discussions around
Yeah.
vulnerability acquisition. Like you can
Yeah.
actually see
At
it in
this,
the, yeah.
at this time and in this way. Um, but the discussion that I've gotten around this in the US is a lot more kind of like this marveling, ooh, ah, of like we can see behind this veil to what our enemies, our adversaries look like. And you're like, yeah, they have they companies talk to each other and they sell each other
Same
stuff
things
and
we
they
do here. Yeah,
and but like in a way same things we do, and in a way no. Like that's honestly it. It's like I think we have this like we've developed this like weird alien mechanism for how things work in the US, like in Five Eyes, but more than anything in the US. Because like when you say the same thing happens in the US, I don't know, man. I don't know that Raytheon and like Booz like have emails back and forth about like the girls in the research team next door. And like because it's like two mega fucking $1 trillion corporations that are doing it here. And that comes with all the red tape and all the bullshit that comes along with that. And over there, it's like a couple of companies of skilled people that have been doing this for several years. Those exist here too, right? Like for sure. But
Well, you want to tell me you can't find the equivalent of an Ice Soon and a Pangu team here in the US doing this kind of collaboration?
I don't want to answer flippantly. I think we could find similar organizations, like similar companies within certain aspects of it. But I don't think you up until now, maybe by the time this podcast is released, it will be different. But up until now, you didn't really have you don't really get to have the like cowboy do everything companies. They hack, they source, they do the vulnerability research, they decide who they go after, they share stuff with each other, they call each other up, hey bro, like I was doing this for these guys. Like, no, we're not in the skiff, right? Like this isn't like some insane fucking over bureaucratized process. Like you're just like shooting an email like, hey man, they would love a vuln for this thing. I guess they're going after those gamblers. Haha. Like that's not happening here in that way. But also, I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing for us. Like we have put 17 layers of bureaucracy and 4,000 pages of paperwork in the middle of every operation, every component, every team that does one thing and analyzes another, to the point where like when we watch other people do it in the most common sense way that every other place on earth thinks is like,
We
yeah, that's how
pretend we do
business
it
is
like,
done. We're like, no, we don't pretend. We're like, oh wow, huh. What
Costin,
must
he's
this
put a
say
lot of
about
whitewash on this
their
stuff, eh?
lifestyle and like military like culture? What must this say about their inscrutable soul, Asian souls, so impenetrable, so
Mr.
hard
Free
to
for All over here.
understand? The fuck, man. Anyways, that's
I
not on
don't know.
Eugenio. Eugenio's work is good. It's just
Oh
weird
yeah,
receptions, man.
I was just looking at this Anduril posts on X.
Which
If you have
one? There
seen
was like, so there were
the
two. There were two I
lowercase
saw.
one, like the ones
Yeah,
all
all
lowercase,
I need
like
to go get my
Sam Altman
Anduril
style.
jacket, man.
Aye. Can we talk quickly? We got news out of Cisco Talos around Salt Typhoon. And one of the things they're making clear is that, listen, the Salt Typhoon people are rummaging through these telco networks using old vulnerabilities that have been patched for a long time, stolen login credentials, living off the land techniques. There's nothing magical or sophisticated about ODA usage here at all, according to Cisco Talos visibility. They confirmed two things. Two things we got confirmation from Cisco is that CVE 2018-0171 is a remote code execution vulnerability in one of their smart install feature was actually compromised in this. And they're saying we have no information that these other 3 or 4 CVEs that the government is talking about is actually thing, but they're still, again, old patch things. What do we learn from Cisco Talos here? Anything Anything groundbreaking at all? What do you know, Juanito?
I'm gonna get in trouble on this one. I have a feeling because I I don't th- I don't get the feeling that Talos wrote this.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh,
Go look at that
oh.
shit. It looks like fucking product guidance. You need to go hard in this and that. And for customers who enabled the this and did that and whatever, they can expect a patch and a fucking brownie in their mailbox tomorrow. And you're like, what the fuck? This is not a research report. What is this shit about? Like, we know one Ode is real, but the other ones we don't think are true. And you're like, bro, you maintain these fucking devices. What do you mean that you don't know they're true? Does that mean you haven't seen them? You haven't evaluated them? Did the government make them up? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And honestly, the rest of it is like generic guidance about things we'd already heard about, but that don't really speak to the operational limit, like issues here that make it so that even your guidance is not really all that solid. Because like you're doing this bullshit thing of like, well, this is how this concerns my appliance that I make.
Well, it's their
And
visibility. And in all
no, no,
fairness,
no, no,
we're
no, no,
here.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no, 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 no,
Okay, go
no,
ahead.
no, no, no. It's not their visibility because that's where they're trying to convince us that this is like an investigation that resulted in the equivalent of maybe one IR's worth of information. That's not an investigation, A. B, that would explain why you're saying 4 days, but you only know about one, and the other ones you're just gonna like you're not telling us that they weren't real O days, or that you analyzed them and they're actually N days, or that they were exploits but they didn't work. You're not giving us some guidance that says we looked into this and we're telling you that like authoritatively only one of them was an O day. They're saying one of them is an O day, the other ones are a rumor because we haven't looked at them or like nobody shared them with us.
They're
And
explicitly saying that no new Cisco vulnerabilities were discovered during this campaign. While there have been some reports of salt abuse, these 3 are the known Cisco vulnerabilities. We have not identified any evidence to confirm these claims. Again, this reads to me as like, here's our visibility. We don't have the evidence.
but your visibility is a one IR's worth of visibility because I'm sorry,
Is it possible
these
that
are
they're in the same conundrum that we are, where we don't have a device to inspect? We can't definitively.
no, no, they're Cisco devices.
No,
No
I mean,
telemetry.
meaning they don't have telemetry from the victim.
I don't think this is a telemetrical thing. I don't even know what kind of telemetry they can and can't collect. I don't know what they can and can't do remotely because I mean there's zero transparency about any of that stuff. But I honestly I haven't asked because I don't wanna put anyone in a difficult situation. But like this doesn't read like a Talos report to me. This looks like a fucking Cisco knowledge base article about how you can cover your ass about the Cisco part of your network. Because the other part here that's saying
Could
like,
it also
oh,
be true though? Could it also been?
it doesn't it cannot it does not matter in the way that they're discussing it, because what I want to remind you is that there are all of these networks have multiple types of appliances on them. So giving you hardening guidance about how you can go about they almost make it sound like these people are so silly. It's just credential, like just the using of valid credentials. And you go, yes, but the credentials are harvestable from the network, and the network has multiple types of appliances, not just Cisco. So even if I do all of your bullshit hardening for the Cisco
The
thing,
credentials are still
the
exposed and being
credentials
ripped
are
off. Yeah.
still going to be exposed in the network where there are other footholds that you're not talking about. So this is like very much a myopic CYA release. And I resent, if I'm right, then I resent that they tried to use the Talos
Yeah. I see the
mantle
point you're making. Yeah.
because this doesn't sound like a Talos report.
Costin, you read this report. There was one line here that I want to flag for you. It says the threat actor also pivoted from a compromised device operated by one telecom to target a device in another telecom. And then there's no technical details or no description of what that is. It tells you also that whoever wrote this, whether it's Talos or whichever lawyer kind of put this thing together, they threw that in there because they have this visibility. Like, what do you make of that line?
Well, I think it's common and it happens that some of these telecoms are connected to each other for either swapping customer information, especially when it comes to telcos, subscriber information, all those kind of things. So that's not necessarily surprising. I was somehow thinking that I saw this before, but I can't quite say exactly where I have seen it before. The other line, by the way, which attracted my attention were just two things which I find surprising about this report. The first one is that yet another report without IOCs. Like there's two IPs in there, but I understand they're like legitimate IPs.
No, what the fuck
quite
was
unlike Talos as well. Talos is known for shipping IOCs, right?
Exactly.
Well, not just for shipping IOCs, but then you get this weird like update where they suddenly go, oh, these like first it was like these are Salt Typhoon IPs, and then they have to update the blog, and it's like, oh, never mind, these are legitimate IPs, and you're like,
smart install abuse not associated with Salt. Yeah.
The best part, like for me, the most I don't want to say the only interesting, the most interesting part of the report is when they talk about this thing called jumbled path. And I was thinking, oh, this is something new. I don't think I've seen jumbled path being mentioned before. This is like a new malware name for me. It seems to be some kind of a custom tool written in Golang. And I was like, awesome. Where is it? Like, share the hash, man. Like, be like, come on. We need some IOCs. Like, I'm still surprised. The people are still too secretive when it comes to Salt Typhoon. Where's the hashes? Like, does it really hurt that much to share a hash for jumbled path?
Let me ask you something. And this is what be even worse. What if this isn't Salt Typhoon? What if this is just a different Chinese threat actor, a different random threat actor that's hitting Cisco appliances? Because like at this level of analysis, we've watched other people like that recorded future report was bullshit. We've seen a lot of ambulance chasing on the Salt Typhoon train. And I am asking, if you remove the name Talos from this blog, would you trust or even believe that this is Salt Typhoon and not just we saw a thing hitting an appliance with a backdoor that did the stuff?
This is the problem with show your work, right?
I trust this Salt Typhoon. You know why? Because no IOCs. That's the proof. If it was something else, there would be IOCs.
This is very much a trust me, bro, and it's not. And if that's why I feel like really indignant on the suspicion that this isn't Talos, because trust me, bro, this is the equivalent of like, you know, if those bullshit blogs about Ukraine coming out of Microsoft had been branded Mystic.
Right. You mean the Cyber Peace Institute blogs?
Yeah. I mean, look, I bitched about the digital crimes unit and all that crap, but like, at least they had the decency to not like drag the name of their like genuinely believed research team through the mud for like some cover your ass shit.
Yeah, we're not throwing mud on Cisco Talos at all. Shout out to the guys over at Cisco Talos. But the biggest takeaway here, if you could walk away with one thing here, is that, listen, these telcos are literally sitting on unpatched vulnerabilities. There's user credentials are everywhere. It's a complete and utter mess there, and there's no level of sophistication needed for Salt Typhoon to be successful. I feel like that general gist comes over in this blog post that it's a fair takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk quickly about Russian APT, a new report out of Mandiant, our friend Dan Black, with a report on Russian APTs abusing this linked devices feature in Signal. So Signal allows you to like scan a QR code and run like the messenger on your phone and on your desktop concurrently. It's a feature we all use, I'm pretty sure. He has found evidence of a couple of UNCs, sandworm, targeting individuals of interest in Russian intelligence services, Ukrainian military personnel, government officials, and so on with this trick and this technique. Is that something significant, Costin? Does this mean we should all stop using Signal if we're...
No, I mean, look, to me, it all makes sense. And we've seen Russian APT groups getting interested in compromising Ukrainian encrypted communications because they have no other ways to snoop on what the Ukrainians are talking about. And we've seen cases where encrypted signal chats are being used to discuss like real stuff on the battlefield. So this is being used on the battlefield for real, for military purposes, sometimes through GSM networks, but also like in other cases through Elon Musk space internet. So it's not a surprise that they are targeting that. I was thinking that there's an interesting parallel between this story and the one with Apple removing the advanced encryption in the UK. Because in essence, the question was like, why would the UK government need Apple to remove that encryption? Because basically, there's no good way of breaking signal communications. But by default, and if you don't know what you are doing, all your signal messages actually get backed up in your iCloud, unless you go in there and you manually disable like through one of the menus. And well, if you're the UK government, you can try to ask for those backups, which will contain the messages. If you're the Russian government, you don't have that luxury. So you need to develop all these tricky, sneaky methodologies if you want to steal the Signal SQLite 3 encrypted databases from the computers of the victims, to target their accounts with QR codes. Of course, all of that, it's essentially just, how to say, guerrilla warfare. I mean, something that they have to do in order to snoop on those encrypted communications. And what I really liked about this blog is that it didn't focus on just one thing, one group leveraging this sneaky new method with the malicious QR codes, but it goes through all the different groups, which have very different methodologies, by the way. They either do phishing kits to steal the Signal credentials, or these QR codes, or stealing of the databases. For instance, Turla does that. They like to do that. So I like that very much. For me, it was a very interesting blog with multiple IOCs for the different actors mentioned there. So
And it
props
also
for a very nice one.
also pinpointed a pretty significant weakness in this Signal mechanism. I think Signal actually fixed something here based on this reporting, because Signal has updated the app to include safeguards such as user verification prompts after linking new devices and requiring authentication for adding new devices, which suggests that in the past you could just scan a QR code and it runs in the background. There's no like triple checking
Yeah,
that. Wait,
that's
that's
like
the right QR code. Wait, I'm in a restaurant. I'm
terrible.
expecting a menu. Like we're
Right.
Terrible.
Right.
And somehow this, by the way, reminds me of the story we discussed the last time with pretty much more or less the same, but with the Microsoft entra, per favor, por favor
Come in,
story.
come on
Yeah,
in.
yeah, coming. Like when there's like this method where code can be sent to an account. So, I thought there can be some parallels in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting that the Russian threat actors are moving towards these methods where they listen to the side. They link their interception infrastructure through essentially abusing features in the communication protocols applications, and then they just sit to the side, get a copy of everything, and they don't have to do 0 days
Yeah,
malware
enough to
like
break encryption or
iOS.
do any of this stuff.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's also an interesting corollary that they are doing this, meaning that they don't have a mobile capability that's actually properly scaling and sitting on those devices.
Or they don't
Because,
have
like,
to. Or they don't
Oh,
need
no,
to.
no. I mean, look, that it's always preferable, right? Like to have full device access and know what else they're using and know if there's other comms and be able to like do analysis and spiral out from there, etc. So like the fact that they're not, like, yeah, sure, sneaky, but you would never choose this as your first option meaning that to some degree that first option is not available, which I think is very interesting too.
Yeah, pretty
But
interesting.
I remember talking to one of I think it was somebody working for one of these cyber mercenary companies at a
Ooh,
conference.
look at you.
Yeah, he keeps
You and
interesting
your
friends.
friends.
Yeah,
Not my
yeah.
friends, not my friends, just people I meet. It's like people who wanna, just come and take
Backtrack.
photos with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
For some
People
reason.
who want to take photos. Yeah, do you get those? Like yeah.
And then if you want a photo with them, they're like super
Yeah,
freaked
exactly.
out and they run away.
Blue hat is real, as
Blue hat?
always. Yeah.
But yeah, I was like asking in that particular case, I knew they had 0 days, but at the same time they were doing some like
Was
low
it
end
at Blue
phishing.
Hat Israel?
No, I cannot say. I
I
wouldn't
cannot
say.
say.
Yes.
He's famous
Yes.
everywhere.
You cannot say yes. Go ahead.
Maybe
go ahead.
Romania, who knows? Bulgaria. And yeah, I was like, what? You guys have 0 days, right? You have like all this Wi-Fi exploitation. You have zero-click iMessage thingies. Why do you do phishing? Like, and he said, like, listen, sometimes it's good to have some low-end capabilities that get caught, and everyone is happy. Like, yeah, we caught those guys. This is all they have. It
Big
causes
blog
some
post,
kind
big
of
report. Yeah.
yeah, they're everyone's happy essentially, and we can still use our 0 days, and nobody's thinking about searching or finding those. So
Misdirection. Yeah.
I would expect like these super sophisticated groups, especially the GRU affiliated ones, to have some kind of iOS exploitation capabilities, and we've seen them like APT29, for instance, in the past. They were targeting people with iOS 0 days over LinkedIn to steal their cookies and to read their messages. So I would expect them to have such capabilities, but they save them for the most valuable targets, like the crop of the crop, if you want. And for everyone else, it's good to have some malware that steals
Yeah.
your SQLite3 databases or uses these methods. And sometimes you'd be surprised that these simple basic techniques can bring more value and can bring more information than the super advanced zero-click chains.
Shout out to Dan Black for some good work, good research, sharing his work. And let's end the show on a more lighter note with a story that we'll all understand. The last time we
Yes.
heard from Satya Nadella on Twitter, it was about this Windows recall thing that turned out to be a disaster. This time around, we get a big Satya thread on Microsoft announcing a breakthrough in quantum computing. I say this is a pretty easy thing. It's named Mahorana.
Majorana.
Costin, unpack and
Majorana.
simplify this for us. What are we looking at here? Microsoft created an entirely new state of matter. Why is this the biggest thing ever?
Look, this is like one of those tricky things when you ask something and the reply is about something else. So like, what are you wearing? Our company just launched a new pair of shoes, and like, no, that was not the question. Like, what kind of hat are you wearing? Well, yeah, our shoes are the best. So like, if you want to just to nitpick things, I don't think that they announced or created a new state of matter. I think
Really?
that's wrong.
That's what
Microsoft
the man
didn't
said.
create
I
a
call
new
it.
state of matter?
No, they didn't. Look,
Are
there's
you serious?
four states of
Are
matter,
you
right?
saying they're lying to us?
There's
They didn't
there's
change the
four. They're like
physics of our
solid,
universe
liquid,
last week?
gas, and plasma. 4. That's it. Now, well, again, if you want to nitpick things, but there's physicists out there who would say, well, this is a with the maybe Russian accent. This is a new, entirely new quantum state of matter, which is very different from state of matter. Quantum, not quantum. That's different. And I think, by the way, there's like some amazing Russian physicists on YouTube talking about the universe and all that. So
You
I
see
would
this
just,
rabbit hole he's goes
Dude,
down?
this is
I am,
fascinating.
right?
I'm here for this shit. Let's go.
But like, look, it's not a new state of matter, but for sure it's something new. Again, a quantum state of matter. So what they say, and I thought that the name they chose for this chip, which is Majorana, it's an Italian name. It's of a guy called Ettore Majorana. And I was wondering what kind of name is Majorana, like for Italians. But then I realized Romanian people who are like brothers with the Italians, we have this name as well, Majorano. So yeah, it makes sense. It sounds Italian, all right. And Ettore Majorana is a famous guy who disappeared under some super mysterious circumstances. He bought a ticket from something like Naples to Venice, and then he vanished during the trip. Some people say that he appeared later in Argentina. Other people said he appeared in
the
Venezuela. So it's like a mystery. His disappearance remains a mystery, if you want. But he was a brilliant physicist who came up with this idea of Majorana particles, which they're not like the typical particles, like from school, protons, neutrons. So these are kind of, let's say, pseudo particles, fake particles, or cluster of particles. It's like saying the three of us together, we are a problem. But it's not like three different problems. We are just one problem. So this is what it is. Essentially, it's like a cluster of particles. When taken together, they behave differently. And most quantum computers so far, they leverage different techniques to create these qubits. And they all suffer from the same problem, which is decoherence. They break down after a while. So the qubits break down, and that means that you can't crack the RSA encryption with them. So what Microsoft did here, like if you want differently, they leverage these fake three-body problem particles to create a more stable infrastructure that could allow them theoretically in the future to develop the 1 million qubits super quantum computer. So there is for sure some progress. So there's a significant breakthrough here. I would say they haven't like really created the new state of matter. So it's not like inside this chip there's some glowing sparkles which are neither matter,
An infinity stone
liquid.
of some sort.
No,
So
it's
you're
actually
calling
more
out
boring
Satya.
than that. But what is kind of crazy here, if you ask me, is that they do say that the information is not kind of stored locally with these particles. So what that means, probably it relates,
They're cloud particles.
it means, and it relates to the Nobel Prize in Physics from 2023, which was actually granted for proving that the universe is not locally real. So, like, I was still thinking about that when I was reading this. What does it mean? So, like, the information is not locally stored.
Told
Where
you
is
this
it
was a
stored?
soft
They
topic.
are not storing it in the chip.
In the
Can you imagine that?
hypercloud.
It is somewhere else. Like, we can't say for sure where the information gets stored. But the whole point here is that because the information is not locally stored, it is more stable. So it cannot be influenced by temperature variations and other things. So it may be in a different universe. Maybe can be in a different time zone. Possible. Maybe it's in a like 3 hours behind or 3 hours ahead, and
What
that's
the
why
fuck is
it's
happening over
more
there with you
coherent.
guys?
Juanito, could you close with some shout outs, please?
I mean, I think this is like, it's
I can't.
amazing that Microsoft can recreate the universe on a whim just a couple of weeks after some NVIDIA statement makes the entire quantum computing market drop like 13% or
Right.
whatever, right? Like
Right.
it's cool. It's like, no, it's not that far away. Come back here. Interesting times.
Well, and can I say that the fact that they immediately went, they didn't say that this will allow us to do the 1,000 qubits. They didn't say this is going to allow us build the 5,000 qubits. So like if you want to break RSA, people say maybe you'll need about 5,000 qubits, something like that, and RSA can be broken with all the error. The more qubits you have, the better. But they went like straight for the 1 million qubits. So to me, this was also a bit fishy, like, but it
Very
sounds
good.
better. Sounds
Yeah,
much better.
I
But
understand all of it.
but to the bottom of things, like at the moment, this chip, it has, how many? 8 qubits. That's it. So they say we're gonna get to 1 million, but for now we
We
have
got 8.
about 8.
Good
Which
enough.
these 8, they allow us to factor all the numbers from 1 to 10. So good job.
Juanito, close the show for me, please. You got some shout outs?
I did. I don't remember anymore. I'm like marveling at Satya, master of the universe. Well, okay. Unfortunate stuff with the power at DistrictCon, but I am excited to get to watch some of these videos. Actually, on the plane to Reverse conference, which I will be doing an iOS training, so to bring all this stuff kind of together, like doing iOS, Jiska's iOS, macOS reversing training. So I'm excited for that, and here's hoping no emergencies like pull me away from any of it. But excited for this new con, as we've talked about it multiple times. The other thing I've been thinking about is with this Russia signal post that you brought up, and Dan's great work. If things are gonna play out the way that was described in the Munich Security Forum, then I think everybody better get ready to double back to giving a shit about Russia again. I think we, on some level, from Western centric and American centric standpoints, we have l- started to look at Russia as a diminished threat, as a contained problem, with this incredibly effective shield of the Ukrainians, fighting tooth and nail, and coordinated sanctions packages and all that stuff. And if that's all about to change, in some capacity, unless we see some like serious continuity, all I'm flagging is for everybody who moved on and is now almost entirely focused on China or like local, ransomware or whatever it is. Don't get too cozy not paying attention to Russia, because it's going to become incredibly relevant, at least to Western Europe. So more so than it already has. It, not to mention Africa and the Middle East and so on. But interesting times.
Costin, you got some shout outs?
Sure thing, interesting times. Just the other day, over here in the Constitution Square, there are people with the American flag in one hand, with the Russian flag in another hand, and with the Romanian hand in the third hand, all the same.
All
And like,
AI
what's
people.
what's going on in this world? We don't know. Shout outs to our good friend Mr. Will Bushido Token, who submitted a fantastic story we didn't have time to cover on Taiwan government wanting to ban Fortinet. Maybe we can
Oh my God.
cover it the next time, allegedly because of their links with China.
Yeah, apparently the Fortinet CEO and his brother are Chinese citizens who created that company many, many years ago. I mean, there's like some loose connections. The Zoom CEO also has like links to China that Taiwan is flagging as like, hey, this is Chinese
Suspicious. Yeah.
related problems that we should start looking at. We can get to it in the other episode.
Very interesting, yeah. So shout out to Will, of course, and to pretty much all the other people who are okay in my book, except for those who are not okay. They know who they are.
I will be at ReverseCon in Orlando with Juanito there. If we have any listeners there that want to grab a cup of coffee, grab a beer, come and find me. We'll say hello. And with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll catch you again next week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.